Hello from Taiwan. Trying to get into a new habit of actually recording my Friday night sermons and uploading them. So this is the first that I'm doing from Parshat Bereshit, which this year was unfortunately focused on the pogrom that happened in Israel on October 7th. So that's just the context behind when this sermon was actually given. Going forward, I'm hoping to do them weekly, but I thought I'd start from the beginning since that's the best place to start. So that week's Parsha, Bereshit, was the Parsha of creation, the very first Parsha in the entire Torah. Reaching that Parsha is very, very special, for it means that the Jewish people have made it through yet another year. We have completed another cycle of reading the Torah and get to begin again. So that Shabbat is a Shabbat of new beginnings. And while we all know that new beginnings are difficult, nobody expected a beginning like this. And while, after October 7th, the world may look different to us right now, it may seem like we're living in a completely different world from the world we were living just a few months ago. That is in fact not the case. It is not the case. We, as individuals, might be different, but the world hasn't really changed. Let me show you by looking at Rashi's commentary to Bereshit Aleph Aleph, Genesis 1:1, the very first line in the Torah. Very first line in the Torah is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And Rashi asks, why did the Torah begin with the account of creation? The Torah is primarily a law book, a book of mitzvot. So why did it not begin with the very first mitzvah given to the entire Jewish people? Which is actually this week's Parsha, currently right now, when I'm recording this, Parshat Bo. The first mitzvah being Rosh Chodesh. And Rashi answers, God had to show that He created the world, and He gives pieces of the world to those He chooses because the world is God's. And Rashi says, for should the peoples of the world say to Israel, you are robbers, because you took by force the lands of the 7 nations of Canaan. Israel, the Jews, can reply to them, all the earth belongs to the Holy One, belongs to God. And blessed be He. He created it and gave it to whom He pleased, when He willed. He gave it to them, and when He willed, He gave it and took it to them. And that's Rashi. This sounds familiar, right? Everyone has heard the accusation leveled against the Jewish people in Israel. They call us thieves, occupiers, colonialists. The exact same meaning, but sometimes our enemies use more sophisticated words. But you see, Rashi, the original gangster, the OG, old school biblical commentator who started the biblical commentary tradition, he already knew what people would say when the Jews returned to Israel. In medieval France, over 1,000 years ago, Rashi already knew what the world would say. It's almost as if our enemies studied Rashi, but we know that's not the case. So how did Rashi, over 1,000 years ago, know the exact arguments that the contemporary anti-Semitic murderers would say in 2023? How did he know? I'll tell you how. By being a learned Jew, one who knew Jewish history and religion in and out. And what is so interesting is that this extremely Zionist Rashi isn't found somewhere in the middle of his commentary to the Torah or on an obscure passage of the Talmud, since he wrote a commentary on almost the entire Talmud as well. Rashi's prediction about what the 21st century anti-Semitic people would say about us is how he opens his commentary to the Torah. The very first line, the very first words, the very first opening of his Mona Lisa, his masterpiece, his commentary to the Torah. So you see, things haven't changed. Let me give you another example. Yom HaShoah, the day which we particularly mourn the 6 million Jewish lives taken during the Holocaust. It is a very important and solemn day. If you've ever been to Israel during Yom HaShoah, you know it can be a very moving experience. Whatever anyone is doing, whether they're eating, working, driving on the highway, as soon as the sirens start blaring, everyone stops in their tracks to pay respect to those precious lives that were cut short. For 2 minutes, they stop what they're doing and stand for a moment of silence. The first time I was ever in Israel for Yom HaShoah was many, many years ago. However, my experience was quite different than this. I was sitting in yeshiva, studying Talmud, and the siren started to go off. I looked to my Rebbe, my teacher, just to see what I should do. He caught my eye, he said, "Nu, Bittul Torah," and pointed to my Talmud. Bittul Torah is this concept, this sin of wasting time on something at the expense of studying Torah. So my teacher's meaning was that I was not allowed to interrupt my Torah study to stand for a moment of silence. True story. Now, I'm not saying that this rabbi was right, but for people who know about my Hasidic background, it shouldn't be too surprising. But there's something that we need to understand. This man, that rabbi, who told me not to stand to study, he is a great Torah scholar and one who had lost family in the Holocaust. He was in no way saying that those who lost their lives to the flames do not deserve our respect. That was not his meaning. Rather, he did not see the Holocaust as something new. In his mind, the world hadn't changed. Let me unpack that a bit. In his mind, the Holocaust was, not to minimize it, simply another atrocity that committed against the Jews by those who hate us. The Nazis were just another group of worthless anti-Semites who failed at trying to wipe the Jews off the face of the planet. Like the Egyptians, Babylonians, Assyrians, Greeks, Macedonians, Romans, Crusaders, we could go on and on and on and on. In his mind, those Nazis were just another group of anti-Semites, vile bums who tried to exterminate us but couldn't. They were nothing new. And in that rabbi's mind, we already had a day for mourning those of us massacred by people like that. Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av. And in fact, you're not allowed to study Torah on the 9th of Av. You're not allowed to. Because studying Torah is enjoyable. And you're not supposed to enjoy things on Tisha B'Av. You're not supposed to be joyous. So no studying Torah on Tisha B'Av. So like Rashi and my rabbi in Israel, based upon their long-range view of Jewish life throughout the centuries, the world has not changed. And while we may think that my rabbi made the wrong call, and he should have instructed me to interrupt my Torah study, pay respects, we can understand his mindset. We can understand where he was coming from. Also, I think we can appreciate it and learn something very important from it, something that we should ponder. The last thing that a Nazi or a Crusader or an ancient Macedonian or a modern day member of Hamas, the last thing any of them would ever want to see is a Jew sitting in a Jewish space practicing Judaism. That is the very last thing they would ever want to see. While a moment of silence pays respect to the dead, it does not wage war in the same way that doing a mitzvah does. It's not the same kind of revenge, the same kind of battle cry as sitting and studying Torah. Studying Torah also keeps our tradition alive. It's forward thinking. So I return to my first point. The world hasn't changed, but we have. We have. Our sense of security and the way we believe that the world worked, all of that has been violently ripped from us. Perhaps we did not have the most accurate perception of how the world worked in the first place. As we say in Yiddish, it is hard to be a Jew. It was true in Rashi's time in France, 1,000 years ago. It was true in Germany, and it's true in Israel today. The world has not changed. But like I said, we have. But we're just beginning to change. Just like one who reads the Torah for the very first time, there is no way you could possibly imagine what is yet to come. If it was your first time reading and you're in Genesis, you have no idea what comes next. You could not imagine the Exodus, the golden calf, slavery in Egypt, Mount Sinai, and then finally coming to the land of Israel. So too, we cannot imagine how we will be changed from this in the long run. We don't know. But we do have some control over it. We have control over who we are going to be. We want to fight, even if we're here in Taiwan. But flying to Israel and picking up a weapon is not the only way to fight. If that's what you're doing, Kol HaKavod, thank you for your service. And we honestly could not live a Jewish life the way we do without you. So thank you. But if that's not what you're doing, you can still wage war here. Maybe go to shul more often, volunteer more, say a few more prayers at home, learn Hebrew, give money to a Jewish cause, or focus on being a better person. All of those things are the last thing that Hamas would want you to do. To see a Jew, be a Jew, connect to their tradition, turns their stomachs. That's why they hate us so much. So I urge you to use this new beginning, this new cycle of the Torah, and the new liminal space in which you find yourself as an opportunity to stick it to Hamas, to fight them by keeping Jewish peoplehood alive. Shabbat Shalom.